Hi devs, I'm Cray, and today we are going to create our card and generate the grid layout, so the right amount of cards. Let's start with creating the folder for our prefabs. Create the card prefab from one of the existing cards. The main image will be used as a border. It will be a parent of two more images, one for the back face and one for the front face of the card. With the script, we will switch between those two cards' visibility. We will add the vertical layout group to the parent image and create some padding and spacing to make the parent work as a border. And add some color to see the child images. And let's set the visibility, one of them to none. And let's drag this to the prefab folder. And after that, let's create a card controller script. This will help us to manage the card infos, and it will be responsible for the flipping mechanism later. We add it to the card prefab and write the functionality later. Create a canvas manager script. It will be handling the size of our canvas, generating the needed amount of cards, and set random card type to each of them. It needs the card prefab. This will be generated. This type of game object will be generated, and we will need the card collection with all the cards available for this game, and we need the difficulty settings as the scriptable objects we created in the last video, and the card collection as well was created in the last video. We need the easy, the normal, and the hard data. This difficulty will be choosable from the menu later. And we need to store this kind of data, so we need the local variable called dtas. In the awake function, we should create 3 functions. One will be responsible for choosing the right game data SO. The other will be responsible to set the grid layout data to the card grid layout, and the third one will be responsible for generating the right amount of cards. So in the first, the get game data, we will create a switch case with all the difficulty params, and we will be store the difficulty settings chosen in the menu in the player prefabs, and it will be stored as an int, so we can read it out. And of course, because we not have any kind of menu yet, we can set a default value. You can use it as you set a second parameter to the getInt function. So it will try to get an int called difficulty in the player prefabs, and if it do not get it, it will set it to normal difficulty. And after that, the newly created game data's variable will be set to easy, normal, or hard based on the value readout from the player prefabs. And after that, the second function will be to set it to the card grid layout. In that function, we will read the params from the game data's scriptable object and set it to the card grid layout. The plan is that we will add this canvas manager to the same game object that stores the card grid layout. So First, we can use find object of type. It will find that type of object if it's in any other game object, but it's a little bit better solution to store it in the same. So the grid panel will have the CardGridLayout script and the Canvas Manager script. In that case, we can and of course we set all the params to this Canvas Manager, the game details and the collection and the newly created CardPrefab as well. And with that solution, in the Canvas Manager, we can use the get component because it's on the same game object. And after that, we set all the parameters from the game details to the CardGridLayout. So the preferred padding, which will be responsible for the padding around the grid layout, the rows and columns, which will be responsible for how many cards do we have, and lastly, we have the spacing, which will be responsible for the spacing between the cards. So that's all we need to set. With all these datas, we can now generate the cards. Now we can't do anything in the editor, or at least we can press play but won't see anything because we have these already added images. So we should create our third function, which is the generate cards. It will be creating all the needed amount of card prefabs created in the start of the video. So we need a card count variable in which we store the needed card amount based on the rows and columns stored in the game data. And with that number, we can easily create a for loop and instantiate all the cards needed. And in the instantiate function, we use the two parametered version where we add a prefab which we would want to instantiate, and we add the parent, which will be the grid panel that has the component, the Canvas Manager. So it will be this transform add as a parent shown in this helper tip. And for easier debugging and nicer hierarchy, we can add the name to each of our cards with the number in the name. We can separate it. And for later use, when we want to create matches or just add the random card types to each of the cards, we should store them in some way. And earlier we said that card controller will be responsible for the card datas. So we create a list of card controllers. We should instantiate that list, that is a new list of card controllers. And we can now add each of our cards to this list. Because we add the card controller to the prefabs, each of our newly created game object has a component called card controller. So after that, we should delete all the created cards and press play, and now we can see all of our 20 cards. Based on the normal difficulty, it will be a 4x5 grid. That's it for this video. In the next video, we will work on the card types for each position and the randomization in the card grid. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.